Hey, this is Jason from Hot Water Music. Our new record Vows is coming out on May 10th, and we are very pumped for it.
Beautiful, Jason. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So, as you mentioned, Vows will be out on May the 10th, which isn't that far off now, bro. Like, how do you feel about it? Like, do you still get nervous about releases, anxious, don't really give a shit? Like, what's been?
All of the above. No, it's definitely anxious and nervous. If I don't give a shit, we made a bad record. So that's um, uh, no, it's a lot of I'd say it's definitely all the above, and it's always kind of changes in the way that it's. I mean, this is the first time we put out two records so close together in a long time. Not the first time. It's been a long time since we put two records out this close in succession to each other. So that's like been pretty cool. But even then, it's the landscape of releasing albums is just constantly changing. And even not to sound like a weird Luddite or like super Gen Xy or anything, like it is just almost day to day different things need to be done. So there's that like weird level of anxious that's kind of in the new landscape of whatever we all do here, that wasn't the same as before. Like before, it was like I hope that we get some good reviews and like that whatever the X, like hopefully this store picks it up and that store picks it up and this and that or whatever. And now it's just like I hope it doesn't get buried 5 minutes after it comes out under
Yeah,
just like a flood of other posts or whatever. It's so weird sometimes. Like,
yeah, isn't it?
um,
And the press release calls it your most ambitious collection of songs to date. Would you agree with that statement?
I think so. I feel like we've definitely thrown a couple. Yeah, I think it is. I mean, there's some stuff on here that would not have made. I don't want to say wouldn't have made it on any other records, because it's not a quality issue. I think there's some stylistic variance this time around, a little more so than usual for us, and I don't. I think it only happened because of the specific songs being as good as they are, whatever, working as well as they did that way. Like there's, I think a song like specifically I'm thinking of like After the Impossible right now, like that's like could very easily turn into like a super like very cheesy kind of like prom rocky song, and some people might think that it is that, and that's fine. But I think we don't feel like we did that. So I think that they're like that song and specifically that song, like maybe Remnants, some of the vibes on that too. We didn't not put anything on the record as far as like no, that's not cool, or we shouldn't do that, or that's not like us. And we're not really ever like that anyway, but I think we were instead of maybe policing things as much, we were more pushing the more outlier elements to get to the quality where they felt like they could land on the record.
Yeah, very cool. Now, Bowers sees Hot Water Music celebrate your 30th anniversary as well, mate. So is it an album that sort of covers your musical output over those 30 years, or is it sort of more a look into the future of the band?
I mean, I think it's both. I think that definitely you could definitely say it covers the 30 years. Like there's a little bit of something from every era or like aspect of stuff that we do on the record. It's kind of the records that we've always strived to make, and at least that I always want to make. Like bands that I really like hold their records at not necessarily the best records in the world or and higher, standing than other records per se, but like rock records that I really enjoy are always by bands like Faith No More or Fishbone, or where there's just a lot of variance from song to song to song, and it's not just like chug 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 chug. And I think we did that on this record. And I think for as far as looking forward goes, we did some new stuff, which isn't easy 30 years in. So I mean, I think with us, once we can get something new in the kind of repertoire in the rotation, we'll take it and run with it and keep pushing and pushing and pushing. So that's kind of a pretty exciting thing.
So after 30 years and 10 albums, mate, like, would you say it gets easier or harder to come up with new material the more you write and the longer you're in the game?
It really depends. I mean, for like when we set out to do this, we weren't sure. We just knew we wanted to do some new music for the 30th and not sort of just do like a nostalgia run and, whatever. Like, let's do a 30th anniversary tour, but like, let's put out some new music to like kind of just let everyone know we're not like, okay, this is it, and we're gonna play the hits and blah blah blah. So when we started writing, we didn't necessarily have an album in our sights, but we got there pretty quick. So it really just depends. I think the for us at this point, we're not gonna make a record if we don't have a good one to make.
Yeah.
So it really is like, the next time we set out to make a record, we might end up putting out a 3-song EP because that's what happened, and those were the only things that were good enough, for us to feel comfortable putting out or feel like needed to be put out. Because we've said a lot already, so
Much left to say.
yeah, it's like at some point you got to make sure that if we've said as much as we've said, if we're going to say anything else, we want to make sure that it has some heft to it or some meat to it for sure.
And you also chose to return to producer Brian McTernan, who you had worked with on 3 albums from what was considered your classic era, sorry, in a fight, a crash, caution, and the new what next. What was the thought process behind that?
That's our comfort zone and in a good way. Like if there was, I mean, now that there's 5 of us, if there was a sixth member of the band, it would be Brian. I mean, and I've said this on a couple other interviews. I think the thing about him is that he produces this from the vantage point of we're friends and we've known each other for a long time, and he made those records with us. So that's, he's got a very good grip on how we operate. But he also is a fan of the band, and so he wants to make a record that he wants to listen to because of us, not because of him being the producer. So he's not producing it to put his name on it. He's producing it because he wants to help us make the best record we can make. And not that most producers aren't in that same, lane as far as stuff goes, but I know with him that it's like the only reason he cares that his name's on it is because he likes it, I guess. You know what I mean? It's not so it's from a very pure like producer standpoint as far as us working together. I mean, and we're like I talk to that guy almost every day. So it's a lot of fun to work with him, and he knows us very well and knows how to get the best out of us, and he knows what we're capable of, which is I think important for us.
Sure. Now, Hot Water Music haven't had any guest artists for a number of albums, mate, but on Vows, you've got members of Turnstile, Thrice, The Interrupters, Farsight, and more. So, firstly, why did you decide this album was right to bring guest artists back? And what was your selection process? Like, did you have a set criteria for who you wanted on there?
The initial thought was just part of kind of like tying into that little bit of what I was saying. The last question is that we don't ever want to make a record for no reason, and then every time we make a record, it's like, well, what's different about this, or what makes it a little more exciting for people or for us or whatever. And that's something we thought it was that we just haven't had guests in a minute. So we wanted to explore that a little bit and see what we could come up with. So that was excuse me, kind of the thought process behind that. Well, before we recorded, we're like, well, let's see what happens with the songs and who maybe would fit where. And it's like the criteria and list was literally everyone that we thought of, we asked, and they all said yes. And
Like,
we're very lucky that happened. And it was pretty off the cuff as far as like, I mean, we had some ideas of who we would like to have on it, but we didn't want to ask someone to be on something that didn't make sense for them, or it just like make it feel forced and just like for no reason other than saying so and so, is on the record. So everything was like, very carefully like thought out as far as like this person would be good here. And if they want to do it, cool. And if they don't, then that's that, like, and so it's kind of, there wasn't any nobody got more than one. Like everyone that was on it was sent the song they're on, and like, hey, would you like to do this? Um, and from there, it was sort of like you can do what you be yourself and be an artist, because that's why we're asking you to be on this is because we like what you do. So go for it and be creative. Which is cool because then it was felt much more collaborative, hopefully for everyone else involved as well.
Yeah. Now, being your 30th anniversary, mate, it's fitting to sort of go back in time a little bit. So I want to go back to the start of hot water music. Like you formed in Florida back in 1994. So what was the musical climate like that gave birth to the band, and where did you fit in initially?
Um, excuse me. The As far as fitting in, I mean, in Gainesville, where a few of us still live, and where we started, we didn't really fit in when we started. It was much more of a, I want to say like crust punk vibe here at that point, but more of a like East Bay kind of shiny blats. This is a little crust punky here, and we were, we got made fun of for like George having too many cymbals and whatever. Like having it was one of those like I don't know. My first bass was a not my first bass. The bass that I had when we started playing was this same type of bass I use now because I saved up for like 8 months to buy it, and so it was one of those like oh rich kids and shit, which is not true. Um, I think it was still at the time where like there was a subsection of punk or whatever that kind of shat on people taking themselves seriously and trying to be good on some level. Like there was like it was still that just like punk is just the vibe and not actually doesn't matter about the music so much, which is true to some extent, but we just didn't fall into that category. So it took people a while to be okay with us. I guess. As far as like the overall Florida climate was cool. Like it was, I really enjoyed it at that point. The kind of area that we all grew up in had a lot of bands, had a lot of shows, and I don't know, like I mean, the big bands for us at the time were like, I mean, Far Side was one of them, Sam I Am, Quicksand, just a lot, I mean, a lot of the bands that we get to, we're lucky enough to be able to play with now. Because even though we were super young then, now that it's 30 years later, you know how it goes. If you're 18 and someone's 23, you think they're like almost going to die. But now that, like, it's, so the time gets a lot different the further down the road we get. So it was a cool climate. And I have a lot of fond memories about like our formative years for like in the band and not in the band in Florida and kind of the music scene that was going on out here. It was very cool.
Now, 30 years is a long time in music, mate. And like over that time, there's been plenty of fads and trends come and go. So as a band, have you ever tried to change with the times, or have you sort of been more content just to stick to your own path?
We've tried to change as much as we could, which was a mistake. It is mostly like I would say kind of the 2004 zone, which was right after Caution came out, and probably like the historical peak of the band or whatever. And right after we did that, it was sort of when all of the like Hot Topic sort of that emo wave came in and got massive. And there wasn't really anywhere left for a band like us. A lot of our peers had broken up or stopped playing or whatever. And so we were kind of left hung out where it's like the other bands that we were kind of friends with that were still around at that point had like Alkaline Trio were fucking massive or AFI were massive, and we didn't really fit in with their new fans, as so many of them that there were. So we, caught ourselves wearing like all black long sleeve button downs and shit for a little while, but that went away and it looked really weird when we did it too. So it was this little short-lived detour in the world of trying to adapt to the music industry. We just decided no thanks and we'll just keep doing our own thing. So.
Smart call. Now, you're also going to be celebrating your anniversary by going on huge tours of the UK and the US. So tell us about those.
Yeah, I mean, we just wrapped the UK run, and that went really well. It was cool. The US starts in like 2 weeks, and that's insane. Like we're going on tour with Quicksand all summer, and then in the Europe in November as well, which is great. And they're one of my favorite bands, and they're definitely a super influential band on us before we even started the band, us individually. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be the most, we haven't done this many shows in a while, so it's going to be cool from a lot of angles aside from being gone for so long. It'll be nice to get to a lot of these places we haven't been in a minute. And another thing that happens when, the last, I don't know, 10 years or so, we've been doing shows like two or three in a row kind of thing for the most part. And pretty hard to hit your stride doing that. So it'll be nice to have like an actual section of shows where like by the fourth or fifth one we're super warmed up and feeling like really great because no matter how much you rehearse, no matter how much you prep and get ready, there's always like you still have to knock the rust off on the first few shows. So I think that's going to be very cool for us to kind of really get the kind of nucleus super gel together and super tight for the rest of the year.
Very nice. And is Australia in your sights further down the track, mate, or you haven't gone that far yet?
Yeah, February 25.
Yeah.
So we're like in the middle of getting the announcement figured out and all that stuff, but it's definitely happening.
Beautiful, Jason. All right. Well, thanks very much for your time today, mate. The album Vows is out May the 10th, and it's a 30-year celebration of the band Hot Water Music. And it's a bloody cracker from what I've heard, mate. So best of luck with it, and we'll see you out here next year.
Right on. Thanks, Kris. I appreciate it.